if I could literally go back and tell like my 17, 18-year-old self that it's not it's not a rocket ship. That's not how it works. But in my little innocent, gung-ho, ready to go 18-year-old self, she'd probably fight me on it. I can remember sitting on like the floor of our apartment, just bawling our eyes out and being like, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna get out of this? Literally like the next day or the next 2 days or the 2 days after that, his boss is like paying for a whole year of our college tuition. And I'm like, hello? My parents do not like the word quit. I had many times where I'm like, I want to quit. Like, I don't want to do this. And they're like, that sucks. You made a commitment and you're going to follow through with it.
Hey, Aleecia. How's it going?
Hello. It is going well.
Good. Before you get started, if you want to let the people know who you are, what you do, any likes and dislikes in your personal life, anything and everything you want to share about yourself.
I don't know if we have enough time.
Whatever you want to share.
I am Aleecia Delozier. I have a degree in sociology and human services. I'm also a photographer. So I'm a mom, I'm a wife. That pretty much sums it up.
Awesome. I guess we could start with the photography aspect of it because I feel like that's comparatively a little more recent because you started doing that after graduation, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, you're totally right.
So talk to me about that.
For sure. So I graduated with a sociology degree, and I graduated literally in 2020 on a random Thursday on my computer on a couch. And I distinctly remember shutting my laptop after I did like a 20 plus page paper for statistics. And I was like, well, that's it. We didn't get a graduation, obviously, because of the pandemic and everything. So I was just like, what do I do? What am I doing? So I actually, after that, I worked for a family. I was a nanny for 3 kids and I loved it. And they actually went to a private school, and then that private school hired me. And in like a couple months, I got promoted to an education director at 23 years old. And that was a lot. Lots of learning and lots of mental breakdowns in the parking lot. I was ultimately wanting to do social work. I loved working with kids. I was an intern at a place called the Care Center. They help children who are neglected and abused. I loved it, but they weren't, again, it was right after the pandemic, so they weren't taking people at the time. So I was like, oh, great. So now what do I do? So I worked at that private school, and then about a year and a half later, I found out I was pregnant while we were in Oklahoma City, and my whole family's from Tulsa. I was like, at that time, my husband was working as a property manager for this really, really rich guy. He is so sweet. He's just old and has bukus of money. And he was like, hey, do you want to be my property manager? And Hunter's like 24, 25 at the time. And he was like, sure. He did a great job. And then I found out I was pregnant, and Hunter got sold a business, actually. And the business was in Tulsa. And funny enough, we found out a week apart. So he found out that he like got sold a business and we were going to be moving to Tulsa. And the week right after that, I found out I was pregnant. So we were like, oh, well, that's supposed to happen. So we moved back to Tulsa, and luckily enough, I was able to stay home the rest of my pregnancy. And this leads up to photography, I promise.
It's all good.
I was sitting there and miserable at 9 months pregnant, and I was like, what am I going to do? Because growing up, in high school, I didn't have to get a job, but the alternative was I was playing soccer. And if I was playing soccer, then I needed to get a scholarship for college. So that was my job. I played high school soccer. I played on a competitive team. We were pretty serious. And that's what I did. I played college soccer. And so after all of that being said, I was like, I'm bored. Like, what do I do? And then I had my daughter. And then, I mean, as if parents are watching this, they know that the first like 4 months, you pretty much just black out because you're fighting for your life. um, so that went by really quickly. And then I think it was when she was about 6 months old that I was like, I have to do something. Like, I cannot sit here anymore. And my husband, he was like, I mean, you can get a job, she can go to daycare. And I was fighting, feeling guilty of not spending that time with her, but also like wanting to have a job. And I told myself I wanted to stay home at least for a year so that her and I can spend that time together. And it's so important. And if I'm being completely honest, daycare is so expensive that if I were to work, it literally would just be for daycare. So I was like, what can I do? Like, what am I do? I like had many mental breakdowns. I like was crying, and my husband was so sweet. He's just like, what can I do? And I'm like, I don't know. So I don't know why, but so we did a family photo shoot with our family photographer. She's so sweet. And after that, I like asked her questions, and I was like, oh, what kind of camera do you have? Oh, blah, 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 like all this stuff. And I was like, I wonder if I could get into photography, because at a young age, I was like, I'm not creative. Like, I'm not an artist. Like, I'm not an artistic person. And then I was like, wait, I could be creative in other ways. Like, I love like just taking pictures, like taking like all the memories and stuff. And especially like at that moment when my daughter hit 6 months, I mean, my phone was like full already up to 6 months of like pictures of her. So I was like, I want these to be like good. Like, I want to remember them. So my grandmother, my step grandmother, is a nature photographer. Amazing. She's incredible. Like, her work is insane. And she would like talk, like show me all her pictures and stuff when we'd go over there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like these are so good. Just like, it literally looked like you were seeing through your own eye. Like, her camera is so expensive. And I was like, oh, okay. And she would always be like, you should start. Like, I love your pictures. And I'm like, oh, okay. But when Leo was born, I was like, I might want to like just try this. Like, in my head, I was like, there's so many photographers. Like, when you jump on Instagram or Facebook, you can scroll and you're like, 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 different photographers are like, my family photos were done by this person and this person. And ultimately, that's what kept me from doing it for so long. Was I was like, there's no room for me. How am I supposed to like get into this? And everybody's so good. And I don't know if you're like this, but I'm the type of person to be like, if I'm not already good at it when I do it the first time, I don't want to do it. That's why like sports were like my thing. I've played soccer since I was 7 years old. And I was like, I'm good at it, so I'm going to do it. And I did it until I was 19. And then after that, I was like, what am I good at? I don't know what I'm good at. But I told my step grandmother. Oh, also kind of backstory. So my step grandmother is a nature photographer. My stepfather is a graphic designer for so many different companies. He's done stuff for like MLS, like soccer, like all that stuff. He's ran his own company multiple times. And that's where I was like, it was intimidating because I saw the kind of work he did. And I was like, there's no way. Right now, he does stuff for the Outdoor Channel. So if you go on their website, he does their stuff. He does like the magazines. And I'm like, wow, that stuff is so good. And so I would always like compare it to myself. And I was like, there's no way I can do this. Like, people are already so good and technology is already so advanced that I'm like, I'm so behind. So then I told my step grandmother that I was like, I don't know, I think I like just want to like maybe try it. And she was like, oh my gosh, yes. And my stepdad had her first, like one of her first cameras. It was like a Canon T4. And like in the camera community or in the photographer community, you know, that's like a beginner camera, which was good for me because I was like, I want to start from the bottom. And my husband was like, when I was starting it, he said, oh my gosh, like, let's get you a camera. And I actually turned him down and I said, no, I was like, I want to start from the bottom and learn like all these like settings. I want to learn the camera, like ins and outs and everything. And that's what I did. Was after I would put my daughter to bed, I would literally sit on the couch, watch YouTube videos almost every single night. I mean, I still have like my notebook. I would write down like all these notes. I was like, I literally just graduated college like 2-3 years ago, and I'm like doing this now. But it was on my own, and it was like I was literally writing down. This is how like behind I was. I was literally handwriting like contracts, like this is what a contract looks like. And I'm like, why don't I just type that? When I look back at it now, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know why I did that. But I started shooting with it, and I still have like the picture first photo shoot I did of my kid, and then my other friend, her daughter was turning 1, and she was like, "Hey, will you do her pictures?" And I can't tell you like the stomach drop in my stomach. I was like, "No, you don't want me to," and she was like, "No, please," and I was like, "Well, if I'm doing it, I'm doing it for free. Like you are not paying me." And she was like, "Let me pay." I was like, "Girl, no, do not pay me." And it was hilarious. Like she loves the pictures, but me as like the photographer I am now, like it is so pixely, so granulated. I literally had my ISO probably the highest it could be because it was in home, and still to this day she's like, I love your pictures, and I'm like, girl, be for real. But yeah, after that I just was like, you got to put yourself out there. Like there's so many other photographers, but there's only one me. So, and I'm like, obviously people like my work. So, cause I mean, this last year I dedicated myself to just learning and shooting every single thing I could. And I had so many bookings, which led to me buying my first camera. I got a Canon 6D, which is like pretty average. So now I'm this year, I am comfortable enough to make this my own and like make it a business for myself, a small business. I'm not expecting to be like, oh my gosh, she's on the cover of like Vogue, she's taking Vogue. Like I get that, but I'm like, I have met some of the best people doing this, working alongside people, and just embracing it and just making it my own. I mean, I've had shoots where it's like, that was not a good shoot. And then the next one, I'll have like an amazing shoot. But then the one after that, I'm like, I didn't like that. So it's not really like, it's not progressive like this. Like you literally, like, that's something I've learned is like, there's going to be so many different things you run into, so many different scenarios. And you're like, oh, well, I learned that for next time. So I mean, I've grown so much just in the year. And then now this year, I've dedicated it to making it my own style because, like I said, I felt like it was kind of basic, just kind of what everybody does is like the lifestyle pictures in a field and like family photos. And I'm like, I like more edgy stuff. I like making it more creative, more my own. So that's kind of where I am right now in photography. So sorry for the rambling, but that's kind of how I am, how I've gotten to where I am now.
No, that's cool. That's cool. I'm completely okay with you sort of going into all of that detail because,
For
firstly,
sure.
it gives me a lot of questions that I can ask based on what you
Yeah.
said. And
Yeah.
also, like, it sort of, like you said, sort of shows the progression of where you were and where you've come, right?
For
Like,
sure.
how much
Yeah.
you've learned over time. And from starting with the camera, that was a bit of a hand me down, I guess, if that's fair to say.
Oh, it was
Uh,
for sure.
and then to get your own camera. That in
Yeah.
itself is a progression, right? Because I think through that phase, you go through a lot of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure you had those moments of self doubt where you were like, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Like, why should I invest in a new camera? Maybe I should just stick with this and maybe
Hmm.
prove it to myself that I can invest in that. And then that's like a never ending cycle where you feel like
Oh
you've
yeah.
not done enough.
Oh yeah. No, for sure. You hit the nail on the head. Like when I had my first camera, I was like, there's no like, how do I get better than this at this point? And something that's like super important to me in my like small business, and honestly super important to my husband's business too, is relationships literally are key, like to us. I have done so much work for free, literally just to get the knowledge. I've worked beside people where they like even offer to pay me, and I'm like, you don't have to. Like, I literally just want to learn from you because you're so great. I shot beside, again, it was our family photographer. She's a very incredible like wedding photographer too, and I didn't know. It was at the beginning of finding out kind of where I wanted to go with photography because obviously the money is in weddings. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that yet because that's such an important day. That's so much responsibility. I don't feel like I'm experienced enough. So I did a couple weddings alongside a couple people, and it was incredible just watching them. It was like a dance. Like they knew it like the back of their hand. And then on the other hand, I shot beside my very first wedding I ever did with an incredible photographer. She does creative photography. I learned to shoot beside her multiple times, but she did weddings, but also did creative stuff. But she found out that she didn't like doing weddings. It was so funny. The wedding I did with her, I literally just saw her face and how like drained she was. And again, it's my first time, but like we went in the parking lot after, and I was like, girl, you don't have to do this if you don't want. If that's not your passion, you don't have to do weddings anymore, no matter how good you are and how much people pay you. And after that, I think she did one more wedding and she was done. But now she, oh my gosh, like I'll have to send you her stuff, but she does like studio work, like incredible. So I'm like, that's where you shine. Like, find where you shine. That versus, I mean, weddings. And then I think I did no, I did three weddings. I had like a disaster wedding, my last one, and I was like, nope, I'm not doing weddings ever again. I'll leave that to the pros. It's just not my forte. It's not my personality. And there's people who it is their personality. I will say, like, my best friend in the entire world, she is one of the best wedding content creators right now. She's all over TikTok. She was made for that. She is everybody's best friend. She is everybody's hype woman. Like that is her element. So if you need a wedding content creator, hit up Content by Kinsey. So yeah, I mean, finding your lane and thriving in it. I mean, in anything, honestly.
Right.
So
Um, Talk to me about the style that you're trying to adapt, because that's something you said, wherein you're trying to gradually transition into that a little more. So, what do you see
yeah.
yourself doing in that case?
Yeah. So like I said, last year I kind of shot everything. So I don't know, I dipped my toe in a couple different waters, a couple different oceans. But I am kind of finding I love like studio, like creative shooting, but involving it in kind of like everyday lifestyle. So, for instance, maybe like a family photo shoot, but maybe like livening up the outfits, maybe like a monochromatic moment, or I actually have I'm gonna try to do one creative shoot a month, just like from my ideas. And I mean, I have one that I want to do that involves like a swimming pool. I have one that is I haven't shot men yet, like strictly just men. And I'm going to Oklahoma City and shooting like a streetwear like men's shoot. One of my other best friend's husband like creates clothes, like he designs clothes and it's streetwear. And I was like, oh my gosh, why haven't I shot you yet? So I think in March or so, I'm gonna go down there and do streetwear and just like, I don't know, I love very like vintage, like I said, lifestyle creative. I also love pulling from like history. So like one of my favorite things to look on Pinterest is like 90s Vogue magazines. I am obsessed with them. I have to like recreate it, but I want to like, I don't know, I love making people feel good. That's one thing that I learned when shooting like this last year is like I love shooting like couples. Some I knew, some I didn't. And I'm like, now we have like a friendship. And I've had people who, I mean, I've shot the same like couple like 3 times. And like one time she was pregnant, one time she was like about to have her baby. And then the next time I shot her, she did have her baby. So I'm like, I love being able to like go along the ride with them and be able to be there for them. And then getting like the comments back, they'll text me like as soon as I send the pictures, they're like, I'm literally bawling. This last Christmas, I shot for our neighbor's daughter. She has 2 sisters, and I shot like all 3 of them. And my neighbor came across the street and she like had tears and she was like, I literally blew it up on a canvas. It's in my house. And like it literally shocked me because I was like, there's no way I'm that good that you're literally putting a picture like on a canvas in your house. And she was like, I can't wait to do spring pictures. Like, send me the link to book. And like, it's at that moment you're like, it goes from being like self-deprecating. You're like, oh, I'm not good. I'm not good, to being like, okay, like I'm at least making someone happy. So I'm not to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm so good. Like I can do this, but I'm definitely like, I need to give myself more credit because I'm definitely, I don't know, it feels weird to like give myself credit, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean completely. Yeah.
Well,
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, like, I don't know, all my life, like I said, if I'm not good at it at first, I just don't do it. And I feel like this is the first time in my life I've actually learned something and let myself like be mad at myself and be like, okay, I have to learn. I have to like, it's okay to mess up. That I've actually witnessed the progression. And like, if you look on my Instagram, you literally can physically see the progression like in my work, and I'm still growing. I mean, I did a shoot this last weekend and it might have been like one of my favorite shoots I've done yet. And it's funny because I always tell myself I hate shooting in flash, and I challenge myself and it's an entire flash shoot and I think I love it. So I'm like, I just for everybody, I encourage everybody to just take that chance. It sounds kind of cliche, but like I never would have like gotten into this if I didn't just be like, well, might as well just do it. So for sure.
Yeah, right. I think sometimes it's just about taking that leap of faith, right? Like that. I guess I could figure it out, but I'd rather try and fail than not try and regret, if you will.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So it's definitely like a good motivator to like at least get yourself out there to start. And then again, like you yourself can then decide if it's best for you to continue or not, depending on
Mm-hmm.
what matters to you most and so on. Because everybody's on a different wavelength, right? Like when it comes to
Yep.
priorities and so on. So
Oh yeah.
um, yeah, but I think anybody is better off starting something that they want to try rather than
Yeah.
never doing it ever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely agree with that. Um, I kind of have a lot of questions. I guess I'm trying to figure
Go
out
for
where
it.
I want to go first.
Yes.
Um, you said that you probably will never do weddings again. Have you sort of put a full stop to it, or would you consider doing it at all?
Um, as of right now, probably this whole year, I've told myself I'm not going to take on any weddings. I've actually had a couple people ask me if I would do weddings, and I had to tell them no. And I'm proud of myself, honestly, for telling them no, because I have, like, all my life have been like a pushover person, and I never want to, I don't know, I don't like, I say awkward situations, but I don't like um, making people upset, because it makes me upset, and that just comes from like childhood stuff. But I mean, in the past couple of years, I've been able to like say no. And I mean, at the expense of like, I don't know, not making people happy. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. Because in the past, I would just be like, okay. And then I would be so uncomfortable or not. I mean, just in different scenarios, I would just bear through it. But I'm proud of myself for just being like, I don't want I don't want to do that. No. So at least this year I'm putting a pin in it. I told a couple people that if they wanted to do like engagement shoots or just like bridal shoots, I would do it. But weddings are just too big for me right now, and I just don't have the knowledge for it nor the passion for it. So I will leave it to the wedding pros. I know many people, so
No, that's fair. And I think that's very important, right? Like to learn the skill to say no. Because I mean, I've
yeah,
been a people pleaser for almost all of my life, if not all of my life. So I
yes,
completely get your point of how, it's very important to say no.
yeah,
And sometimes you have to say it for yourself because, I mean, sure, it might feel like you're disappointing someone else, but then
mm-hmm.
sometimes you just have to. I mean, I guess that's not the right way to put it, but
No,
that's
I
kind
get
of,
it.
you have to do what you have to do for yourself.
Is
So yeah, it
yeah,
definitely is something that you learn over time and
yeah,
get to at some point.
yeah.
Uh,
And it takes practice and boundaries and setting those and being like, I gotta say no. Again, at the expense of disappointing somebody, I have to do it for myself, or I'm gonna be crippled with all of this weight. So that's in personal life and business. I'm sure a lot of business people know that sometimes saying no is the best thing that's ever happened to them.
right, right, right. Because I guess sometimes we can have this mindset of, oh, what if it's an opportunity that I'm missing out on? Um, right? That can
Yeah.
happen a lot too. So I guess it just comes down to knowing, I guess, again, going back to what you said, drawing that line. Like, is this an opportunity I want to take on? If it's a
Yeah.
no, then it's a no, right? Like,
Yeah.
sure, if later on you feel like, oh, maybe if I would have done that, things would have been better or so on. At that point, it's not in your control. You already let it go. You kind of just have to let it go at that point. Um,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
we
for sure.
learn those things. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just completely agreeing with you. I think you're totally right. That's seriously carried over in my personal life so much. I mean, like I said, relationships are a huge thing with my husband and I. We've been married for almost 7 years. We got married very young, but um, we we always talk about how we want friendships and relationships that are mutual and help us grow. So if you look at our friends around us, we're all very truthful, at the expense of them being mad at us. I need you to get me in check, and I'll get you in check. And I mean, we have some of the closest, greatest friends we've ever had, because of that reason. We've had to cut people off because our morals, values, or boundaries don't align. And I mean, we're much quicker at that now. At the beginning, we'd let people walk all over us, but now, if it doesn't feed us, if it doesn't help us grow, if it's toxic, we're very much out. And at least me, I'm the kind of person, I don't know if you're like this or not, but I'm the type of person, once I wipe my hands, like I'm done. Again, that comes from past personal stuff. But it's very hard for me to gain trust back. Very, very hard for me. And that's why I've had the same friends for so long, is because I feel like I have a good radar for who's good for my life and who's just, it just doesn't work out. Not saying that they're bad people or not. That could be business or personal life. It's just like we're just not aligning. And for the benefit of both of us, we have to go our own way. So I'm sure you've had some experiences like that too.
Yeah, you have to draw boundaries somewhere because, yeah, like kind of like what you said earlier, right? Like you don't want to be a pushover because at you will reach a point in time where it will start getting to you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's I couldn't agree more. Um, I couldn't agree more. Something else that I wanted to sort of get into a little more was like you talked about how it's been a wave, like in terms of your experience in photography, and it's not been like a constant upward trajectory. Um,
Yeah.
wouldn't you say that that's kind of how life is in general, not just
Oh,
more specific to that?
absolutely. Absolutely. If I could literally go back and tell like my 17, 18-year-old self that it's not it's not a rocket ship. That's not how it works. But in my little innocent, gung ho, ready to go 18-year-old self, she'd probably fight me on it. As a as an 18-year-old, like I said, I played soccer since I was 7 years old. I had a plan for my life. I was like, I'm going to be a physical therapist. This is what I'm going to do. I love sports. I want to stay in the sports world. My freshman year of college, I interned at a physical therapist's office. The first week, I hated it. I hated it, and I was like, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? I changed my major 3 times in college because I was so lost. I felt so down on myself because I was like, I had a plan for my life, and like that, it's not going to work out. But I do want to be happy. So what do I do? And I mean, like you said, it's just so, it's like a literal roller coaster. Like you got to ride it out. I mean, and sometimes the lows are so low, but those have been seriously the most defining moments for me of making make it or break it decisions. Um I mean, I can't think of an example right now, but I mean, I can just like know the feeling of being like, I don't know what to do. And I mean, our life has been so amazing. And I don't know if you're religious or not, regardless, but whatever you believe in, I'm a Christian, and we literally just like give it all to God. Like there have been so many different scenarios that I'm like, there, like this would literally be impossible. One example being, like I said, the same boss, like Hunter's boss, my husband, he owned the student housing, which was a hotel across from our college. And Hunter didn't have a job, so he became the janitor. Um, and I was working at the iHouse, making I don't know how much, barely anything. We're living in our 1-bedroom apartment. Literally, this makes me laugh just thinking about it. We literally ate like chicken and broccoli and rice. I'm not even joking. I think for like 4 months straight. That's all we could eat and all we could afford. The leanest I've ever been. um, but during that time where he worked there, the owner, he was so sweet. He would like come to the iHouse, come to the hotel, and just like he owned the building, so he'd check it out. Literally ran into Hunter one day. Hunter had no idea who he was. He had a lovely conversation with him, and next thing he knew, he worked for him directly. And then he found out that in the past, he was also like a CFO or like CEO of Chase Bank and like John Deere, like something like that. And Hunter got to like oversee all these things. It provided us so many opportunities, and like through him, it affected me being able to do stuff in college. And I mean, in my experience in college, like I got to meet you and along with everybody else, and like be so exposed to different cultures, different types of people. It literally just opened my eyes to so many different things. So, and then after that, I got pregnant, and then they weren't taking people, and then here we are now. And so, again, it's literally just like so many different scenarios for us have been such a God thing. We've literally just been, I can remember sitting on like the floor of our apartment, just bawling our eyes out and being like, what are we going to do? How are we going to get out of this? Literally, like the next day or the next 2 days or the 2 days after that, his boss is like paying for a whole year of our college tuition. And I'm like, hello? We're like, well, you don't have to do that. Like, we can get it. And he's like, no, I want to do it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, we didn't tell him anything was wrong. Like, that's not his burden to have. So we just, I don't know. It's a higher power for us and we're okay with it. So regardless if you're religious or not or anybody else, like it's a thought.
Oh no, absolutely. I agree with you completely. I am a religious person myself too, so I completely get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I'm trying to recollect. Was his name Jim? I mean, we're talking about Central Plaza, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. His
Yep,
name is
yep.
Jim. He lives in Florida now.
Oh,
he
nice.
right after we graduated college, he I think he retired or something. He sold the building, all of that, and moved
Mm-hmm.
to Florida with his sweet wife, Joy. Love her.
I
And
was trying
he
to
was
remember
like,
what her name was. Yeah.
she's so sweet. And they were like, anytime you want to come see us, like just come stay with us. And we're like, okay. And they like send us like what their house looks like. It legitimately walk out their back door. It's the beach. And I'm like, okay, are you kidding me? So, like I said at the very beginning, relationships are so important for us. And like respect is very important to us too. I mean, give people the benefit of the doubt, give them a chance. I mean, you seriously never know. You never know what people are going through, and you never know what people can do for you or what you can do for them. So I always try to treat people with kindness right off the bat. Now, if you come off strong, I'm a little hesitant, but again, from the past experiences, there's probably something going on. So
Right. No, I understand that completely. Because at the end of the day, I think the one realization we come to as adults is that while life is about a lot of other things, like externally,
Mhm.
internally, it's a lot about dealing with your own childhood traumas.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so
You are not wrong.
it's just figuring that out. And that's sort of like, I don't want to say that that's the purpose of life, but that's sort of like a part of your life where
Oh,
you have to figure those things out.
it affects so much. You don't realize it. As I got older, there were certain things that I was like, "Oh, that was from trauma." How I react sometimes, that's from trauma. But it's also like how you deal with it. Like my sister and I, we deal with ours by humor. Like that's the only way that like both of us can deal with it. And sometimes sometimes we'll be like with friends or whatever, and we'll be like talking about it and joking about it, and we'll catch some of our friends being like, that like that's insane. And we're like, oh, it's no big deal. They're like, nope, that's bad. I'm like, oh, well, it's made us the people who we are. I'm not even kidding. Like, I cannot imagine who I would be without those things happening to me. I am a much stronger, more confident. I stand up for myself more, like saying no and all that. So, like you said, it seriously probably will affect not only me, but like affect all the people who go through that literally for the rest of their lives. It's actually how you deal with it. I during college, thank God for UCO therapy department, because I went there every single Thursday for an entire year, and talked like with a therapist about stuff that I'd never talked to anybody before. And I'm like, what, 20, 21, 22 at the time. So that's like basically 20 plus years of built up stuff. I remember, I don't know if this is kind of off topic, but I remember one day, so a lot of stuff had happened. We don't have to talk about it, but a lot of stuff happened right before we moved from Missouri to Oklahoma City. And it was kind of like a recap of trauma before that. So it was like dogpiling me. And I don't know what happened, but one day I was walking on campus and I like physically like seized up. Like I wasn't doing anything. I don't know what the trigger was or what I was reading or doing or what. I was walking across campus and I literally seized up and I was like, what's going on? And like I like couldn't breathe and I was like having a panic attack like out of nowhere. And I was like I can't breathe. And so I like run up into the NIE center and try to go to like a therapy session. Well, literally as I'm running up the steps, I'm like bawling my eyes out, like can't breathe. I'm shaking, physically shaking, about to fall to the floor. I'm walking up and literally all of the therapists are going to lunch passing me. And I was like, and they all just like were like, I don't know if they really like noticed because they were kind of in the zone. Like they were about to go to their lunch meeting. And I like walked up and the receptionist lady was still there. And I was like, hi. And she was like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I was like, can I see a therapist? And she was like, oh girl, they all just went to lunch for an hour. And I was like, can I set up a meeting? And she was like, absolutely. So I did that. I think I cried on a bench for a couple, I don't know, I say a couple minutes, probably like 30 minutes. And I went and saw my therapist again every Thursday for a year. And literally one day, so I had something to talk about every single day, every single time I went and saw him. And he just sat there and listened. He like literally, he barely had to say anything. I just needed to talk about it. And I remember our last day, I showed up because like you decide when you're done. They're like, we're always available. So like whenever you're done, you're done. And I remember I walked up for a therapy session and I sat down and he was like, all right, like, what's going on? And I was like, I think I'm okay. And he was like, really? Like, that's good. And I was like, this is weird. Like, I don't have anything to talk about. I feel like I've conquered what I needed to conquer and I'm ready to move on. And literally since that day, I feel like I've been like a different person with handling situations, again, like in business, in personal life, with how to handle people. That was such a pivotal point in my life. I can't imagine what I would be like if I didn't go like through that stuff and talk to somebody about it. I probably would be very angry and probably not the best person to talk to. But now I get to do that pretty much for a living. I get to, I mean, I cannot be the photographer that sits there and stays silent the whole time. And that's just like, click, okay. I can't do that. I literally talk from beginning to end. So it makes for a way better session.
For sure, I bet, because I guess with that, in that environment of taking pictures, figuring out what to do, and so on, I guess it helps make things a little comfortable,
Oh
maybe.
yeah. Oh yeah, I play music too. I'm like, what music do you like to listen to? Like, especially at studio shoots, love studio shoots, because we just bring a speaker and like we play music the whole time. I'm like, who wants to sit there and be awkward? I'm already awkward as is, so I'm like, let's just eliminate some of that.
Fair, that's fair. Um, I was gonna ask you something else, and this might be quite a loaded question, so take this
Go
for
for
what
it.
you will, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, this is based on something I heard and recently, or maybe not that recently, a little while back. Anyway, at the end of the day, I don't think any one of us really wants to experience the traumas that we have in the past. So there's always this feeling of, oh, I wish it was better. I wish it wasn't that way. Or, I mean, maybe that doesn't speak, maybe that's not your case, but generally, I feel
Mhm.
like people tend to have that thought, and that I wish it wasn't that way, and that maybe I didn't experience those traumas and so on. And while I
Right.
completely understand that, a part of me wonders, like, and this might be fucked up to say, but is that like a blessing of sorts where, like, I guess you were, for the lack of a better word, destined to go through those experiences so that
Yeah.
those experiences make you a better person. Like,
Right.
do you have a thought on that by any chance?
Right. No, 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 for sure. I don't know. Obviously, during it, I was like, why is this happening? This is a lot for a 13, 14, 15-year-old girl. But now that I'm what, 27, almost 28, I am so glad like that happened. Like I'm not kidding. I am so glad that happened. Um I mean like it's kind of like, I don't know, you know those things like with the pictures and it's like a circle. What are they called? Oh, I remember him as a kid. You like put a little card in and it has all the pictures. You can see like all the pictures go by. Anyway.
Okay, I think I know what you're talking. Like, they're built in like films or whatever
Yeah,
that you
it's
put in
like
through the camera.
goggles or
Yes.
whatever and you like
Okay. Yeah.
pictures.
Yeah.
That's how I see like all of those moments. That's literally how I see them. I see like a flash of every single one of those moments that come into my life, but also in those that come into my life, I can pinpoint literally something that I learned in that moment or a boundary that I set in that moment. And that's carried over till now. And oh my gosh, like having a kid changed everything. I mean, I'm sure that most parents feel the same way, but a lot of things we tolerated before her. But I'm not kidding. The moment that I had her, I was like, nope, no more. Because something I immediately said to my husband, I was like, if I wouldn't let somebody treat her like that, why would I let somebody treat me like that? That's not fair. And she needs to know that like she is strong and you can stand up for yourself and you can say no. Like you don't have to stay, you don't have to deal with it if you don't want to. And some people are like, "Oh, well, like broad, it's family stuff." So, just because we're very big, just because your family does not mean that doesn't mean anything to us. And again, especially with having my daughter, that has never been more true. Because I'm like, you can't you can't just like show up when you want. Like that's not how it works. If you can't just show up like when you want in her life, you can't just show up in mine. That's not fair. And I'll relate it back to business. I've I've had multiple instances of, again, I'm a new photographer. Like I've been in it for maybe a year. I started November of 22. And I've literally had other people who have started the same time as me. Which I'm like, everybody's on their own path, dude. Like you don't have to be like insanely good right now. It's learning. But I've had people who've started the same time as me being like, oh, like what shoots do you have? Can I come shoot with you? Oh, can I do this? And I'm like, there's one thing, because like people have let me shoot beside them, but it's kind of the way that like you phrase it is like, can I shoot with you to learn with you? I would always do it, be like, I do not want to be in the way. I just want to learn. I will pay you if I need to. Like, I don't want to waste your time. I just want to learn. I think you're great. I think you don't even have to like talk to me. Just let me like look over your shoulder, which I've had the people I've shot beside, they've literally taken a moment and been like, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm doing this. Anyway, but I've had people being like, hey, we should shoot together. Hey, I like those pictures. Can I shoot with you? But I'm like, it's a studio shoot and they've paid hundreds of dollars to do this. And I think you just want like a good studio shoot and to post it as your own. So it's kind of just like, do you take the chance and be nice? Or do you be like, I don't know if you're in it for the right reasons. I think you literally just want it for free. And I know photographers who literally charge for like their info. Like they'll charge for kind of like a basic rundown of like what they do, which I'm like, if that's you, like I get it. If you're like, and it's honestly bigger photographers that I know of that do that, which I'm like, I get, you worked really hard to get there. But I'm like, I'm like, of course, like if you want to shoot next to me, shoot next to me, but like don't be kind of sleazy about it. I don't like that. I and like the people that I have shot next to, I know. I've had a long friendship with them. Like I said, the really great creative photographer that I know, we grew up together. She was my neighbor. Like we played together when we were like 4. So I'm like, I don't know. It's just kind of icky to me. I'm like, do you really not know? Like, do you not have friends that are photographers? Like, I'll teach you, but like, I feel like we should get coffee first. And there was like none of that. So it's kind of just, I don't know. And I'm like, I don't want to be the mean one. I don't want to be like, no, you can't shoot with me. But I'm like, I barely know what I'm doing too. So I don't know why you're asking me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'm taking that in that case, like if they would have offered, or well, I guess let me ask you this way. Like, would you have offered to like say, hey, let's get to know each other first and then maybe we could do that? Like, have you done that? And like, has that
Oh,
changed any
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So the one time I did that, I was like, hey, like maybe we can meet up before. I don't know you. I'd love to get to know you. Nothing. I haven't heard from her since. And I was like, oh, okay, yep, I was right. And that's
Right,
always a
exactly.
good thing when you're like, I'm right.
Right, because I
Like,
guess that's a good way to sort of suss things out, right? Because that way you know, okay, this person is maybe not in it for the right reasons. And I
yeah.
mean, to each their own, I'm not going to justify their actions either, but
Oh,
um,
yeah. I'm like, I just don't
it's
know you. Like, I don't know
right.
you, and you don't know me. And I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I'm really big on feelings, and I'm like, if it doesn't feel good, I don't like it. You can ask someone else though. I'll give you a referral.
Yeah, hey, just figure it out. Like, and I think the other important thing is to realize that you kind of have to figure it out by yourself at some points. Because I also feel like, and again, this is not, well, I'm trying not to sound judgmental, but maybe I will sound judgmental
No,
when I'm saying
no, it's
this.
okay.
Uh,
I'm the biggest judgmental person ever.
but yeah, I feel like sometimes people expect to be sort of carried through that path of learning.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. You are not wrong.
and right, and it's just like, I'm sorry, but you kind of have to figure it out yourself too. Like, I cannot spoon feed you to learn everything.
Yes,
Um,
that's exactly how I felt in those situations. And I was like, well, and I don't know. I kind of felt, I don't know. I in those scenarios, I literally pictured myself on my couch writing down I'm like, girl, get on YouTube. Like there is so much information out there for you to at least begin. And I think that just like comes from me just being like, you have to figure it out yourself. And part of me was like too scared to ask for help at first because I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. So I was like, I got a hand-me-down camera. You don't have to like do it that way. If you want, get the $1,800, $3,000 camera, an $8,000 lens. Like if that's where you want to start, dude, I commend you because that's what I want to. But I was like, if I don't know if I want to do this, Yet there's no way I'm spending $3,000 on a mirrorless camera. There is no way. So I was like, I'm just going to use the camera at first and figure it out. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to upgrade to kind of like, I say an average, like a little bit above average camera. And then hopefully save up for one of the bigger, better cameras eventually. But yeah, I'm like, sometimes there's so much more character in starting from the ground, figuring it out yourself. It's okay to ask questions. I did. But I don't know. I don't like people riding on the backs of other people and just being like, oh yeah, I did this. I'm like, girl, no, you didn't. I know you didn't.
Right. And I'm a big believer in like asking, like if you need help at any point, like feel free to ask, but then also realize that I have the power to say no.
Oh yeah. People just expect
And
like you to help them and you're like, no, I want to.
right. But I do think that if anybody out there is seeking help somewhere, you ask, but also realize that sometimes people say no because they can't. Or they might have their reasons to not want to help you. But at the same time, if
Hmm.
you don't ask, then you know when you need the help, you maybe might not get the help that you need. So
Yeah.
um, I also think like it kind of goes back to what you said earlier. A lot of it also depends on how they approach you, right? Like if they're respectful, if they're sort of like coming from a good place, like if you can sense that intention, then all right, like yeah, I mean I can't do, maybe I can't have you at a shoot, but if you want to just sit down and talk, we can do that, like for example.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's such a great idea. And like um I would absolutely be willing to do that. And like that just gives me imposter syndrome. I'm like, first of all, why are you asking me? I'm like, I'm only a year in and I'm like, I barely know what I'm doing either. But I've also had people, this makes me sound like so vain and like I hate doing this, but I've literally had people who are photographers, I'll do a shoot and they're like, dude, that's good. And I'm like, oh, you're just saying that. Like, there's no way. I was like, they're just being nice. You just have to be nice. Um, but they're actually like really good, really great photographers, actually. And they're like, oh no, like this is good. And I'm like, I know there's room for improvement, but like just their validation, I'm like, thank you so much. Like, that makes me feel so good. And like, there's potential. But I'm still like hard on myself. And I'm like, there's shoots like I go back on my like on my galleries and I'm like, oh, I should have done that different. Oh, I should have done that different. But like if I go like to a more recent one, I'm like, oh, that was pretty good. I just did a couple of shoots like at the beginning of this year. Um, I'm kind of like outing myself right now, but all last year, ever since I started photography, I had been using free Lightroom presets, free, because I was like, I don't know what I don't know what to do. And I would over edit the hell out of pictures, and I'd be like, oh, I look back at them now and it literally makes me physically sick. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, everybody. But this year, I actually invested money into some presets, and they're my style and kind of what I've been like working with lately. So I'm super, super excited about this year and kind of stepping into making it mine, making it my personality, putting my twist on it, doing all that. But yeah, I'm like, I was mooching off the free Lightroom presets for I don't know how long. And I was like, oh, yikes. Oh, well, you kind of got to go through the yuckies to get to the, oh, those are actually look kind of decent.
No, totally. Yeah, I can resonate with that 100% because when I first recorded an episode of the podcast, I think I used my phone as a camera, and there's like apps that you can like download on your computer and on your phone that'll sort of
Yeah.
turn your phone into your webcam. So I
Yep.
remember getting like a small ring light so that there was some light on my face.
Yes.
And yeah, I sort of started off that way, but then gradually I was like, okay, I do see myself wanting to do this a little, like for the nearest long term at least, if not like long
Yeah.
long term. So maybe I'll buy a
Absolutely.
camera. And it sort of starts that way for I think a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, you're
uh,
definitely right.
yeah, so I mean, because I think jumping into buying a new camera, for example, in this context, um, on day one, I feel like that's an added challenge that you don't need.
Yeah. That's
Um,
bold.
right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like doing it without like the fancy stuff initially, and I've heard a ton of creators like that I follow, like podcasters and so on, say the same thing. They're like, start with what you have and then go from there, like build on that, because
Yeah.
you don't need to start with like $1,000 camera. You don't.
Oh my gosh.
Uh, you could just
I don't even
start
know if I
with
have $1,000 to spend on a camera.
right, and like just buy a ring light for like $20 on Amazon, and you're all set. Fair, like start
Yeah.
from there. So
And then
that's kind
one
of how I
day,
started too.
yeah, I was gonna say, and then one day you're sitting there and you're like, oh dang, like I've really grown and this is working out and this is so fun for me and I'm actually like making it. So I think it just builds character.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. It definitely builds character. A couple of things I wanted to ask you. You mentioned something
Yeah.
about how you felt you weren't creative when you were young, but um, you sort of realize that you can be creative in other ways. I feel like a
Hmm.
lot of us think that way, that, oh, maybe I'm not creative, maybe I'm not cut out for this kind of stuff. But
Hmm.
I do kind of feel like everybody has that creative bug in them. It's more so a challenge of discovering that in you.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that, or like want to expand on
Yeah.
that?
No, you're so right. Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, like I said, my stepdad is a graphic designer, so he's like one of the most creative people I know. He can draw like it's insane. He's made magazines, he's made websites, like that's what he does. And I just like always compared myself, I think, to that. Not to his fault. I mean, like that's his job, like that's his dream, and that's what he's living out. But I never gave myself a chance to look at anything else creatively. So he's a graphic designer. My mom's actually a singer. She sings amazing. And so I was like, how is everybody else so creative in this family? And there's me. I'm like, maybe I'm just destined for sports for like the rest of my life. Maybe that's what I'm good at. And when that ended, I was like, I don't like again, I remember asking out loud, I don't know what I'm good at. Like once soccer ended for me, it was literally like my whole life ended for me. That's where I learned so many life lessons, how to not quit, how to push through, having teammates, like worrying about other people and how they're feeling. That's where my two best friends in the entire world, we played on the same soccer team. One of them since we were 9, the other when we were, I think, 16, 17. We've been best friends. And I was just like, what am I supposed to do? And then it was hard um, watching, and again, no fault to their own, because I was one of their biggest cheerleaders, watching my two best friends literally kill it. One of them is like head of HR at a bank, and she was made for it. Like she's amazing. The other is a wedding content creator. She's grown in just a year to be one of the biggest content creators like on TikTok. She's insane. I just went to New York Bridal Fashion Week with her because she got invited. I'm like, are you kidding me? I want to be their biggest cheerleaders, but I always compared it to myself because I'm like, what can I bring to the table? Like I want to be able to do something too. And then again, I was just like, I have to find like something. And then it was in that moment that like I had Leah and she was like 6 months old. And I literally just remember it's like ingrained in my brain. I like looked at my phone. I was scrolling on my phone. There were so many pictures. And then I think I got on like Facebook or Instagram. And I saw somebody like posted like professional pictures like of their kid because it was at the season that like everybody in my life was having a baby. So I was like, it was inevitable. But I was like, huh, like I didn't, so as a parent, you don't sleep for like 4 months straight, the first 4 months. So I never got newborn pictures done. I never got maternity, like I say maternity, but like pictures with her done at the beginning. Cause I was like, I don't even feel like myself. Like I don't even feel normal. I feel ugly. Like I'm so tired. There's no freaking way that I'm doing this. Um, and then after that, I was like, well, I want to make sure I get like good pictures of her at least because she's freaking cute and adorable. And so then I just started taking pictures of her, and then I started taking pictures of my dog, and then my neighbor, I keep talking about her because she's amazing. She is this amazing photographer, and this was the first time that like I met up with her in so long. I hadn't seen her in so long. I'd moved away, been married, college. She's been doing her thing. And I messaged her, and she'd been doing photography for a long time, like since her like junior year of high school, I think, just doing pictures for friends and all that. And I texted her and I was like, hey, would you mind if I like picked your brain, like if I came over? And she was like, oh my gosh, yes. And I was like, again, that's how you start. You don't ask to shoot with them first. But genuinely, I like she's the most amazing, sweetest person ever. And I was like, I just asked her all these questions, and I'm like, how did you know this is what you want to do? And she was like, it grew over time. And we just bonded on that. And she was like, it's so crazy. Again, this is like a God thing. She said, I cannot believe that you texted me because literally like a week ago, I was wondering how I could grow my business and I needed somebody else to be creative with. So for like the first 6 months that we got together, that's all we did was do creative. She helped me do my first studio shoot. We have gotten together so many times. She helped, like we did our first wedding together. And it's just like all fallen into place. And like, I don't know, it's just been so my life feels like everything that has happened to me has been so meant to be and so calculated that every time I try to take control of it is when things start going wrong. That when I'm like, I need to chill out and just like let things happen, that is when the best things ever like happen to me. So that's just like from my personal experience. I don't even think I remember the question. I've talked so long, but
No, you're good. You're good. It's okay. Actually, you saying that has popped up another question in my mind.
yeah.
Um, are things, well, how am I trying to frame this? Because I had like it framed a certain way in my head, and now it's just evaporated.
Been
Oh,
there,
again, it's
been there.
there. We go. It's back. Are you a firm believer in things happening for a reason? And if so, why?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, in the most vague way, yes, like I think things happen for a reason, good and bad. Um, again, I sorry, as I'm like literally staring like this, I literally have every scenario running through my head of like things that were supposed to happen, but that didn't happen, but it brought something like even better like in my life. Um,
Yeah, that's okay.
oh,
You don't need to
okay.
apologize. Go ahead.
um, so one scenario I think of, which is super important in my life, was meeting my husband. Um, he, our story is actually insane. Again, a God thing, at least for us. Um, he actually, so during high school, I dated a
You
guy,
don't need to
and
go
we
into
were
detail
like,
if you don't want to.
okay, no, it's totally fine. It helps with the story, so you're totally fine. I dated a guy. It was kind of like a toxic high school relationship, the one that everybody goes through, and you're like, oh, I love you, we're gonna get married. Oh, no, we're not. You make up, break up like 27 times, and that's what we did. And so after that, I think I dated another guy in the summer, like my cousin's friend, because again, from past traumas, like I couldn't handle being alone. And so I was like, I have to have somebody. And everybody around me saw it and they were like, you can do it yourself. And I just couldn't convince myself that I could. So I always had to have somebody. So I broke up with that guy right when I got to college, freshman year. And I feel so bad because he was so sweet. He's very nice. It was a really wrong time in my life. Got to college, did the whole I'm free, I'm in college, I can do what I want, all that. Had no self respect whatsoever. My freshman year of college was probably the lowest point I've ever been in, because I didn't know who I was. I didn't have anybody. I didn't like myself. And it was a week before Christmas break, and I literally said out loud. So the guy I say dating in college, he was from Brazil, so he went back to Brazil, and we weren't even really like dating. It was kind of just like seeing each other. I think I was a freshman and he was like a junior or senior in college, and I was like, this is not supposed to be. And it was a week before Christmas break, and I literally said out loud, I said, I am done with guys for right now. I need to find out who I am. A week later, my husband texts me. I hadn't seen him since May of 2015, because we went to high school together. We'd known each other since the 7th grade. I actually dated his best friend like freshman year of high school.
Gotcha.
And it was like weird coincidences. And we never dated. We were just kind of like friends, acquaintances, whatever. And
Sure.
he texted me the first day I got back from Christmas break, and he said, hey, do you want to hang out? And I actually turned him down because I was like, I'm on this journey to find myself. And he was respectful. He was like, oh, okay. 2 days later, he texted me again. He said, hey, I'm so sorry to bother you. Do you want to hang out after Christmas? And I was like, still no. Like, I'm home with my family. I need some time for myself. The day after Christmas, he texts me again and he said, hey, this is my last ditch effort. I would really love to like hang out with you. And I was like, so I got shoes for Christmas the day before and they were too big. So I was like, I need to take him back to the mall anyway. So he took me to the mall. And after that, we hung out every single day until I went back to college. And the reason he kept texting me was because he had 2 of the same dreams about me. And we hadn't seen each other since graduation, I think, of high school. And he had 2 dreams, the same exact dreams about me. And he was just like, something literally is just telling me that like, he never said this, but like basically like we're supposed to be together in the most less creepy way you can say that. And I tell people, I'm like, when you know, and it was like a physical, emotional, like the most like attraction like I've had with somebody. And like I said, we've known each other since the 7th grade. And I don't know what it was. It was literally just like, like worlds colliding, like the same time. We actually talked about it the other night. And I was like, I can't express how we both came into each other's life at literally the perfect time. So after that, I finished my second semester of freshman year of college, hated it still, moved back. We got engaged. We got married at 20, moved to Missouri because he was going to school there. Moved to Missouri. We're so poor, so poor. Like, again, eating ground beef with barbecue and rice and broccoli. That was probably like the entire year we were there. And then I got that job at UCO to be an international like coordinator. And then things just like started happening like for the both of us. And like we always stop and like give thanks to God like for it. Like I'm like, we literally would not be anywhere where we are. And like, we always tell each other, I'm like, I don't care if we're literally like living on the street in a box. Like I will stick with you. So we just like feel so deeply that like we always just say, it sounds cliche, but like we are seriously so blessed like where we are. Like what 24, 25-year-old gets to get sold a business and gets to stay home and be pregnant and get to be a stay-at-home mom? Like who gets to do that? And I'm like, I don't know. So I feel like I have imposter syndrome, and I'm like, I don't. Sometimes I feel so unworthy of it. I'm like, all these moms are working so freaking hard. They have to go to work and drop their kid off at daycare. I freaking commend them so much. But then I have those moments. Sorry, I'm going into mom mode.
You're good. You're good.
I'm at home, and being a stay-at-home mom, like you, I cannot stress you. There are no breaks. Like your brain does not shut off. There were times when she was like really little, maybe like 5 months old, where I would be like in the middle of the night. I don't even know if you can call it sleeping, but for the first year of their life, you're literally like on the in between of sleeping and like awake, because you're just like so on alert. And like even times like whenever I would go do something, like I don't know, I don't get my nails done, so I can't say that. But I don't know, go spend time with a friend or like go eat dinner with my sister or something, I would still be like, well, does she have this? Like, does she have her blanket? Does she have like a bottle? Does she have this? Even though I'm like, I know my husband's got it, but I'm just like when you're a mom, like you don't shut off. Even if they're like, oh, go take a, I'm like, there's no such thing as a break ever. And like, I'm okay with that because that's what I signed up for and that's what I want. And I want to be a mom and I want to be present. I want to be there for her. I want to show her that she is strong. I was raised to, I say be tough, but like also be emotional. But like my parents literally, like if I said I wanted to be the president, they would freaking endorse me. Like they'd be like, you can do it. I don't care if you're a girl, like you're gonna do it. My parents do not like the word quit. I had many times where I'm like, I want to quit, like I don't want to do this, and they're like, that sucks. You made a commitment and you're gonna follow through with it. And that has followed through. I cannot tell you how bad that is ingrained in my brain. If somebody, sorry, I'm laughing about it because I get like a visceral reaction when somebody quits something or is like, they've given me their word on something. And if somebody like, oh, that like makes my blood boil. And it's so funny because my friends know that if they ever have to cancel on me, there's there's been times where they've told me that they're scared to cancel on me because they know how mad I get. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. But I am such a committed person that it like overtakes my body. I I can't stand when people are late. My sister and I had like genuinely, if we're late, this is so funny. If we're either on time or late somewhere, or like 5 minutes like early, even 5 minutes early, we like physically sweat. Like we get anxious. So we're always the ones who are there like 30 minutes to an hour early to play. You should see me at photo shoots. I'm not kidding. I'm literally there sitting in my car and I'm like, I'm here an hour before. So I'm like, if I have to cancel, it has like I better be on my deathbed. Like, and if I cancel, like I always have a plan. Like I'll get somebody else to shoot for you. If you can reschedule, like if we don't even have to cancel, like we'll reschedule for another day. But I just like it is so ingrained in me that like I don't know if that'll ever like leave my body. But I don't like quitting things unless I've like thought about the repercussions of it, and usually that makes me not quit. But I mean, that's what I want to teach my daughter is like, if you commit to something, if it's not hurting you or like causing you any like mental distress, obviously. But like if she's playing a sport and like that's what happened to me is like if you're going to play a sport and you commit and you tell them I'm going to play for whatever 9 months, you are going to play until that's done. Like there's no I tried to quit like soccer once to do cheerleading and I was like cuz my friends were doing it and my stepdad was like yeah, right. No way. He was like, I don't care if you do cheerleading, but you're playing soccer like until your contract's up. And obviously 2 weeks later I was like, oh, I love soccer. I don't know why I did that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I know some people are different and they have different capacities and different, I don't know, they go through different things and they're okay with like, I need to move on from this. And I get it. I'm just not like that. I just wasn't, it was drilled into my brain that like you show up for people and hopefully they'll show up for you. And that's come to bite me in the like butt sometimes is like, I feel like I'm the person that I just like, I go above and beyond for people, but they don't for me. And that like, that's what hurts. Like that hurts me. But yeah, I mean, that's happened so many times in my life where I've been seriously disappointed that I've had to like retrain my brain to expect that like it's not, they're not going to give 1,000% for you. And I have to be okay with that. It still makes me sad, but I'm like, well, we got to expect it.
Right, because that's something that you can't control, right? At the end of the day, and I
Yeah.
think realizing that goes a long way. Because I'm very much like that, and I think you sort of might remember this from our time working together as like GLAs and in the iHouse. Like, I also kind of like going above and beyond and like giving it.
Yeah,
And I mean, if you
absolutely.
disagree, you can let me know. But
No.
uh,
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're right. I
so
think that's why we
yeah,
got along so well was because
right,
we both like gave our 100% and
right,
then the people who didn't, it really bothered us.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I know you don't care. And it makes me mad.
Right, exactly. And I think at some point I had to make my peace with the fact that there's nothing I can do about how
Yeah.
they feel about this. And
Yeah.
that is going to help me keep my sanity. And that's
Yeah.
the reason why I look at it that way. Because, I mean, unless someone wants to change that about themselves, there's nothing you can do to make them change. Like, I mean, sure, you
Yeah.
could talk to them about it and maybe get them to put in a little more when required. But if they don't want to do it,
Yeah.
they don't want to do it, and that's just the end of it. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
How do you do in like situations where you know that you're not in control? Like how, like what do you do?
Oh, that's a struggle. That's a struggle
I feel
because
like we're the same.
right, c- control freak alert, I guess. But
Yeah.
it's something that I've tried to learn over time. Still, am learning. I don't think I'm there yet. Um, that I can only control certain things, and some certain things are out of my control. So I try to remind myself as much as I can that control the controllable, let go of the rest.
Yeah.
Sometimes I remember that, sometimes I don't, and it's just that constant wave of
Mhm.
yes, reminding myself that. Um, because yeah, like I think there's been instances where, like, to sort of come to that understanding of uh, it is what it is, just deal with it. I've dealt with it in a way that I've taken more responsibility unnecessarily and then burnt myself out
Yep.
while letting them be because they didn't choose to do something, which also comes back to bite you in the ass. So it's not the best way to deal with it either. So yeah, I think it's a constant process of figuring that out. In all honesty, um, and yeah, I
Sorry, I'm
just hope
writing
that I can.
something that you said down because I want to circle back because it made me laugh.
Oh no,
Um,
it's okay. Yeah, you're good. Um, so yeah, it's just a matter of, I guess, at least for me, reminding myself every so often that I can't control something. It's like just
yeah.
like how I can't control if it's gonna rain today or if it's gonna be sunny tomorrow, right? Like it's just the same way. Like
Yeah.
people I mean, that's not an apples to apples comparison, if anybody listening is wondering, but people are kind of the same way. Like, everybody has their own temperament and their own perspective about things. So
Yeah.
if they don't see it as important, then so be it. You just have to kind of make your
Yeah.
peace with that so that you don't beat yourself up unnecessarily.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're so right. I wrote it down because it made me laugh. You said like an it is what it is kind of thing. I remember a specific scenario where I literally texted my sister. So I'll get into this next because this is so cool too. But I was telling her about something business wise, and I was like, we were trying to decide on something. And I said, it is what it is. We'll just go with the flow. And she texted me back and she said, yeah, because that's our personality. Are you kidding me? Because we both know, her and I, and again, I think it stems from childhood stuff, but we are so far from go with the flow that like we have to have, her and I have to have a plan A, B, and C. If those don't work out, full on meltdown, panic attack, like we can't function. There have been so many times where I've like been texting friends or something, and I'd say like, well, we'll go with the flow, and they're just like, yeah, right, like that is not you. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like if we're going to like eat dinner, I'm like, where are we going, what time, what do I need to wear, what's the atmosphere like, is it raining? Like, I'm just like that person. But yeah, I'm not an it is what it is kind of person. I have tried meditation, I've tried yoga, I've tried to find my zen. There's no way it's getting out of me. Like, I have to have a plan, I have to have a Pinterest board, I need color schemes, I need prices, I need this. But yeah, going into it, I just wanted to mention something really cool that is happening in my life, my sister's life. So at the same time, I started photography, literally like maybe a couple weeks apart. She started her own business. And her and I have been kind of, I don't know, doing it together. And it's actually growing pretty good. She started out doing like balloon, like backdrops for people for like shoots, for birthday parties, for businesses, all that. And she's grown pretty big locally, in the Tulsa area, Tulsa metro area, that she's actually expanding. And her and I are growing the business this year. We're going to try to get into some vendors events. Actually, next weekend is like our first big like vendors thing. I got her into it's like a little Valentine's like event, but there's going to be pretty important people there. And I'm also doing that along with photography. So I do all of her marketing. I say customer service, but I book. I don't know. I do all kind of the background stuff. I can make a mean Excel sheet if you need one. But she is so talented. She's amazing. She has been like doing bigger and bigger and bigger, like balloon, garlands, art, all that stuff. She's getting involved in a lot of businesses and stuff. So that's growing for us this year. I'm so freaking proud of her. She's working a full-time job along doing that too. And I'm like, well, let me do all of like the heavy work and you just design balloons. So she's had so many like inquiries like the past couple weeks that I'm like, she's actually booking up. So I think what she said is she wants to go into like full on like event planning at some point. So we want to kind of make it a sister business. So it's becoming like a bigger thing. So I'm super excited for what's going to happen in that. I mean, I just saw photography as a hobby, and then I started making money, and then she like started doing balloons just for people's birthdays, and she's making bank now too. So I'm like, let's combine our forces.
No, absolutely, and
But
more power to you guys for like to be like doing that, because I think it's very easy to get disheartened a lot of times, right? But the fact that you guys are seeing it through, that's awesome. So like, yeah,
Yeah,
kudos to you
no.
guys. That's awesome.
Shout out to Collins Creations events. She'll
What
appreciate.
is that? Oh, that's the name of the brand.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I'll
got it.
I'll
Cool.
send you some links and stuff just in
Sure, I
case.
can put
But
it in the description if anybody's curious. It
hey,
will be in the description of this
yeah,
video
for
and on the
sure.
podcast show notes. So yeah,
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 I'll give you all the links. She is willing to travel to Oklahoma City, and if you want it in that area, she can do it. But yeah, I mean, she's good at it. She has the eye for it. Again, I can make pretty good Excel sheet if anyone needs. It's
awesome.
funny how I'm like actually using my degree at this point. So I'm like full circle.
Yeah, you got to use some parts of your degree somewhere,
I
right?
know.
So
I'm
it
like, I
comes
can
to
do
use. Yeah,
statistics.
right, right. Something I did want to get back to about the "it is what it is" thing because it just triggered another
Yeah,
thought in my mind.
go for
Um,
it.
and let me know. Like, I know we've been running for about an hour and a half now, so if at any point we need to stop, just let me know if you want to take a
No, I'm
breather.
not doing anything.
Uh, okay, cool. But yeah, like what I was thinking was, at the end of the day, like I will do everything I can and then just leave the rest. Because I think, kind of going back to an example that I mentioned earlier, right? Like, I think it's very easy for people like us to burn ourselves out,
Oh, yeah.
um, to where, I mean, I won't go too much into this, but I've kind of burnt myself out to an extent where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, kind of thing. Or it's like taking a
Mm-hmm.
huge break and then like it eats you up inside to where you're like, oh, I want to get back doing it, but it's just like you don't have the mental energy to do it. So like that's something that I'm
Yeah.
also trying to learn and like make that like I guess paste it inside my brain somewhere that
Yeah.
I'll give it everything I have, maybe even some more on top of that. But if it still doesn't go the way I want it to go, then there's nothing I can do about it. Maybe God's planned something
Mm-hmm.
better for it. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens and we'll go from there. So
Oh,
I think that's something to like make sure that it's stuck in there.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Every day being a mom, I'm like, well, like, can you imagine being a control freak with a toddler? It
That was
is
actually going to be my
so.
next question. So yeah, like what's motherhood like? Like let's get into that.
Oh, oh my gosh. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, I think all moms have like the same, like they know what it is, but they don't even know how to express it because there's nothing like it. Um, I don't know. As soon as I had Leah, I everybody says this, but it is a love that you have literally never felt in your entire life. You're like, I don't even, you were just inside of me for 9 months. I barely know you, but I would die for you in a heartbeat. You would fight anybody, you would bury anybody for them. um, it's so amazing. And like, Hunter and I knew that we wanted kids. I mean, that's a pretty big topic to talk about if you're going to get into a relationship. But we knew we wanted multiple kids, and we both kind of had the same idea of what we wanted our future to look like. And um, physically and emotionally, it is literally the hardest thing I have ever done in my entire life. Um, like I said, the first 4 months, I think you don't even feel like yourself. And I know this, and I know that I'm not alone on this. My best friend had her baby 11 10 months after I had my daughter, and she had her daughter. So we're kind of going through it at the same time. But she would literally text me and be like, does this end? Like, what do I ever feel like myself? And for me, I don't know if this is TMI, but I don't really think it is, but um, I started feeling like myself after 5 months, and that's when I stopped like pumping and breastfeeding. I was like, I have to have my body back. I literally mentally felt like I was actually going insane. My hormone levels were nuts. I say angry, but like, I don't even know if I was angry. I just felt like in limbo. Like I just like didn't feel like myself. And in that time, so I obviously, you know me, I've been athletic like my whole life. Um, in that time, you're dealing with so much. You're dealing with lack of sleep. You're dealing with, as a woman, you're like, my body legitimately will never look the same again, ever. And I had like for like the entire first year of my daughter's life, I was like, I would bawl my eyes out because I mean, I was the first out of my friends to have a baby. And my friends looked amazing. They were athletic. They were going to cycling. They were lifting. They were doing this. I was seeing all these people. And as a woman, you already compare yourself, even like before Leah, but holy crap, like when you become a mom, you're like, I'm literally the ugliest thing on this planet. You're like, I'm so ugly. I'm obese. I'm 5,000 pounds. Like that's what you think. But something huge for me, not even as a mom, but just like in the situation of being a parent, is I didn't go through postpartum depression. I was upset like naturally sometimes, but I never like went into full on depression. My daughter is, if you meet her, she is the most calm. Well, not now. She's a toddler. She's almost 2. But I'm not kidding. People would come up to me like, "Is she always this calm?" I'm like, "Yeah, she's just happy to be here." She rarely like screamed. If she cried, we like gave her a bottle or like gave her something like immediately, and she rarely cried for long periods of time. And it makes my heart hurt seeing all these moms who are like, my baby won't stop crying, she's been crying for like 3 or 4 hours, like I don't know how to soothe her, like she's like screaming all this stuff. And I'm like, I didn't go through that because my daughter was like, I don't know, like it was such a blessing because I was like, I'm already going through all this stuff. But something major for me that I've mentioned to my family, my friends, like even other moms who've like reached out to me just in that time is your freaking partner plays such a huge part. Like, and I seriously think Hunter is the reason that I didn't have postpartum depression. He was so freaking involved that like I barely had to do anything. And he was the one who was working. So he would go home or go to work and then come home and be like, what can I do? Because I'm home with her all day. And I'm like, again, like I said before, you don't get a break. So I'm like, I'm hands on all day. And like with a 4 or 5 month old, they don't really do much. They just sleep and eat and like play on the floor. They don't go anywhere. So, but still, you're just like so anxious, especially as a first time mom. You're just like, everything's out to get them. Everything's going to kill them. So you're already anxious all day. And he literally, the first 4 months of Leah's life, we both took turns. He would wake up one night, I would wake up one night. He would wake up one night, I would wake up one night just to get rest. And so as soon as my best friend got pregnant, I said, girl, you have to, and you better not feel guilty about it. And because she got maternity leave, and I think he got off like maybe a week or 2. And she was telling me, I met up with her like after she had her daughter, and I was like, girl, you look so tired. Like there's mom, like natural tired. Like I get it. But she was just like, it looked like she was in a trance. Like she was just like, and we were at a restaurant and I was like, are you okay? And I was like, are you sleeping? And she was like, well, she was like, I get up in the middle of the night with him. And I was like, and her husband's like my husband, like he's willing to, but she was like, I just feel guilty because he has to go to work. And I was like, girl, you can't function in the day if like it's both of you. It's not just like you doing this. If you take on too much, you will immediately crumble. So having a partner that is so involved is so instrumental, like for having like a child, at least for me. And we, like with having Leah, like there's so many people, I get it. Everybody has like, I say accidents, but like they have they get pregnant without like kind of planning it out. They're like, oh shoot, I'm pregnant. But like with us, I told him, I said, I have to finish college. Because again, we got married at 20. Like we got married in June. He turned 21 in July. I turned 21 in September. And I was just like, we were babies ourselves. And so it's also something on that is like when we got married. So we were engaged for like a year, and everybody just automatically thought I was pregnant. They were literally posting on Twitter, like, she's totally pregnant. She has to be pregnant. And I'm like, we're happy. Like, why can't we just be happy? Yeah, it was one of those situations. And I was like, it's going to be real funny when nothing happens in 9 months. And that's what happened. And everybody's like, oh. And I'm like, okay. And so I was like, we just knew that we wanted to be together. Like, we were like, we know that we're going to be together. We're so in love that, like, why don't we just get married and just do life together? And that's what we did. And we don't regret it whatsoever. We've built a life together already. That's way far past than what we even thought we would be at. But yeah, I mean, having Leah has literally taught me like so much about myself. And a lot of moms say that. They're like, you learn so much more about yourself than you even do about your kid. What you're willing to do, what you're willing to go through. There's so many times where I've felt so guilty because I'm staying home and he's going to work. But then again, I'm like finding myself getting physically like burnt out, like, and it will affect like him and I, that like I had to start asking him for help. And I'm like, some nights where I'm like, so I'm a big, this reminds me, I'm a really big quiet time person. I need time for myself. I need to be alone. That's like some of my favorite times. And as a mom, you don't really get that unless they're asleep. So there's times now, like, communication is so huge for us. Like, either like whether it stings or it's hurtful or whatever, like you just got to say it. But there's been times where I'm like, you need to give her a bath and put her to bed tonight. I have to have time. And he's just been like, okay. And over time, I've like felt that guilt going away because I've had so many other moms and so many other women be like, you literally are working 24/7. Like, you're literally raising your kid. You're cleaning the house. You're folding laundry. You're doing this, doing that, running errands, doing this. And then I started like photography, and I was like, oh shoot, that's another thing on top of it. And I'll find myself there's so much guilt like in being a mom sometimes. Like, you find it because like there's times where I'm like, I don't know, am I doing enough? Like, is she learning like developmentally how she should be? And I'm like, I don't know, because she's not in school. So I'm like, luckily my mom's a kindergarten teacher. So I'm like, Mom, like, and she was like, you're fine. Like, she's fine. But I'm always like, am I doing enough? Am I doing enough for her? And then there's some times where I'm like, I have to like go through a gallery, and like edit pictures for somebody in the middle of the day. And I'm like, I have to turn on like Bluey or like Mickey Mouse or something. And I'm like, well, you have all these people who are like, TV rots their brains. Oh, do this. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, oh, I feel so guilty. And my mom's like, 30 minutes of or an hour of TV is not going to rot her brain. And I think back, I'm like, I was raised in the 90s and early 2000s. And I'm like, that's honestly where I learned the most, is like watching TV and like watching cartoons and stuff. Obviously, like there was balance and like we played outside and all that stuff. But there's just so much I've learned in like being a mom. Everybody thinks their way is the right way. And I literally have had to, at the beginning, thank God I did this at the beginning. My mom actually sat me down and she was like, people are going to try to tell you so many things. You do what is right, like for your kid, what you feel is right for your kid. She was like, it's okay to ask for help, but don't let people dictate how you feel like with your kid. At the very beginning, I did that, and it has saved me so much like headache. I'll get on like TikTok or scrolling on TikTok, and I would see like the TV thing. They're like, oh, like your kid's an iPad kid, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, is my kid an iPad kid? Which no, she's not. I'm like, she doesn't need an iPad. She's almost 2. What the heck? But I'm like, watching an hour of TV like on a Wednesday is not going to ruin her freaking brain. We love doing puzzles. We love coloring. We love going through our days of the week. We love doing this. So I'm like, it's so easy to self-deprecate as a mom too, because you're like, oh, this mom's wearing like a cute workout outfit. She looks great. And oh, this 2-year-old, because like that happens a lot because my daughter's almost 2. So you're like, oh, well, their 2-year-old is doing this. And you compare developmentally too. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it is so much just like at you while your hormones are all jacked up. Your life has changed so much that you're just like, sometimes just turn it off. Like just spend time with your kid, turn it off. But that's that's how it's been for me. And like I freaking love being a mom. Like I love watching her grow. She is talking so much more. She's hilarious. I think she's so freaking funny. Who knew 2-year-olds could be so funny? I love just the thought of like Hunter and I, when we talked about having kids, we were like, well, what's the purpose of like having kids? First of all, we want to be like good financially. It's not fair for her to come into this life with us struggling. That's not fair. I wouldn't want to do that. So when we decided, we were like, we could financially sustain having a kid right now, and we were able to get her like everything that we wanted to get her, like a crib, like all the stuff that we wanted to get. And it's so much less stressful. But I also know people who are in like literally are in the exact same stage of life I am right now, and they're the total opposite spectrum of where I am. And it seriously like hurts my heart because I'm like, I don't know. I think they're doing an amazing job, but I can see them comparing themselves to me. And I'm like, girl, I struggle too. Like everybody looks at like Instagram and Facebook, and this, I mean, I'm sure you know, it's very cliche. You look like Instagram is literally a moment. Sometimes it's even like propped, like it's not real. It is not real. Like there have been times where I've literally just been like so enraged because it's out of my control that I'm literally just like yelling for nothing. And then I catch myself and I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. And there's times where I literally like, she's 1.5, like I said, almost 2, where there's times where I'll like lash out for a second, but then I'm like, oh shoot, I try to do my best. Like I literally get down on her level and I'm like, mommy is sorry. She didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. And I don't think a lot of like, I mean, I don't know, but I feel like a lot of parents don't do that often. Is like, as a parent, you're allowed to say sorry too. You're allowed to make mistakes, and you're allowed to be like, sometimes like my emotions get the best of me and it's overwhelming. And if you need to take a second, take a second. But I've had to learn a lot of patience. I think I've talked to myself more than I ever have, like under my breath than I ever have. Like just be like, okay, stay calm, stay calm, stay calm. But it's just part of it. They're learning too. That's something I've learned with being a mom also is literally get into their shoes. Like there's times where my kid, we have tried to put her to bed for 2 hours straight. She's screaming, red face, like will not go to bed, tears. We'll take her in the car, go around the neighborhood. She'll fall asleep. We'll put her back in her bed, screaming. And I'm literally in the fetal position, just like bawling my eyes out because I can't do this. But then eventually she goes to sleep and I'm like, I I just need a second. I need a second. So, I don't know. I think being a mom is seriously one of the hardest things to do. I mean, being a woman is hard enough, and I can't speak for men because I'm not a man, but being a woman in general is hard, and being a woman with a child is freaking hard too. It's kind of like, I don't know, I can't even compare to anything because it's not like anything. We want to raise our kids with great morals and values and to be kind and be strong. What Hunter and I are doing is, at least financially, is trying to set our kids up for success. Whatever path they want. I mean, we've talked about it, and we're like, I don't care if they don't want to go to college. Like, if that's their decision, that's their decision. But if you're not going to go to college, then you need a plan. You need to figure out, like, you're not just going to like bum off of us. Like, that's not who we are. If you want to go into real estate, I'll get you the training as a real estate agent. But then you're on your own. You need to make that path for yourself. But if you do want to go to college, I will support you. Something that I didn't get, Hunter and I come from literally the opposite spectrum of family. I won't go into it, but we both have different ways of doing things, and I feel like it really does balance out some of the things we do expect, like, of our kids and of ourselves. Since I didn't have to get a job in high school and just play soccer, I didn't have to pay for anything. I got handed a lot of things, but that was because my parents worked really freaking hard. My parents got us everything we wanted because they worked hard and they wanted us to be able to have freedom and have fun. But Hunter came from, you have to work for your stuff. For instance, like cars. Like, this sounds so like bad of me. So in high school, my mom got a new car and she just gave me hers. And it was like, I think I got my license in 2013, and I think it was literally a 2013 like car. So when I showed up in high school, everybody was like, oh, she got stuff handed to her. And I was like, it was just the scenario. My mom got a new car. But everybody thought that because, I mean, I get it. I would think the same thing too. But Hunter comes from the complete opposite of that. And something my parents talk about is like, we wish we would have done it differently, where you would have learned to work for it. And I said, I completely understand. Like, that's what we want for our kids. And I'm like, it is so much sweeter, like, when you work for it. So much sweeter when you've put in the work for it and just busted your butt to earn it. So, I mean, there's just so many things as a parent that runs through your head is you're like, first of all, my kid is not about to be a freaking menace and run through Walmart and cause havoc. Like, I would have to be literally dead. There's no freaking way. No. I don't know. We just like want to raise good people that, like, at least me, I'm like, I want to raise my daughter to be kind. And like, I keep reiterating it, but I'm like, to show respect to people and just to be a genuinely good person. I mean, it goes such a long way. If you're a respectable person, we just want to put good into the world. I'm sure, I mean, this world is like so freaking nuts. There's so many different things that are being pushed at us, yelled at us, like, these kids are so bad and all this stuff. And I'm like, it made me scared. Like, when I was pregnant, I was like, was this a good idea? Like, I'm scared to put her into this world. But then I was like, you know what? Even if everybody else's kids or whatever are heathens and like insane, I know that like we did the work that my kid is going to be that one kind person in that group. And maybe be able to change the lives of some other people. But I'm like, it just makes me sad, like all the stuff that's being pushed. Cause I'm like, I do see kids that are so awesome and so smart and so creative and all this stuff that I'm like, it's just sad seeing all the bad in the world. So I'm like, but that can't keep us from pushing forward and making good humans.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm nowhere near having a kid, but that thought has
I,
crossed my mind too. Because it's sort of like, do you want to bring people into this world that it just looks like it's burning to the ground in
yeah,
some sense?
yeah.
But then again, yeah, like you said, I resonate with a lot of what you said in terms of you can do the best you can to get them to a good place, and then
Hmm.
that's where it
Yeah.
is, because that's your
Be the
responsibility.
example.
Exactly. Like, and I think this is something that we also have to realize is like humans, is that we can't fix everything that's happening in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and it goes back to that control thing that I guess we were talking about earlier. In this case, like you can do the best you can to, make sure your child grows into a good person, and that's about
Yeah.
it.
Everyone's just
And
trying their best.
right, yeah, and yeah, I think everybody like has their own boundaries and lines, but at the end of the day, I do like to think that everybody's trying their best. Um,
Yeah.
I'd be lying if I said that I had questions if people are trying their best or not. But anyway, like again,
You and
I
I
guess
both.
right. I guess those judgmental parts of us. Um, but yeah, like it's yeah. I have another question. Sorry, I want to jump back to something.
No, go
Um,
for it.
did you? And again, like if you don't want to answer this, it's completely fine.
No.
Um, was it? I guess weird is not the right word, but like,
Mhm.
did you have a lot of doubts about getting married so early? Because I mean, at least for me, I feel like before 30, I don't see myself getting married. Nowhere near it.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, what was that like? Like, did you have a lot of questions, or was it just like, okay, I'm ready for it, I can do it, kind of thing?
Yeah. Um, dang, that was so long ago. It sounds like I'm like, I know I'm still so young, but I'm like, we got married young, so I'm like, oh, so long ago. Um, I don't know. I mean, at least to me, all all I knew was I was like, I want to be with him. Like it was just so much of a feeling that it was just like, I know that he is going to be the one to like take care of our family. Like, I don't know. A lot of people did say stuff like, obviously, we were 20 and I was literally in the middle of my freshman year of college. And like, I get it. Like, I freaking get it. That's young. But both of us were kind of, I just came out of a freaking crazy place of being like, I don't know who I am, to him being by my side while I figured out who I was. We both had the same like morals and values. I it's so hard to explain because like with me it was just such like a visceral like feeling um that like the first week we were together, this sounds so crazy, but the first week we were together, that like I literally saw our whole life like together. And like I know people say like, oh, I can't imagine my life without you, but like in one scenario, he literally like we actually broke up for like 2 days. Actually, I don't even think it was 24 hours. He broke up with me because he tells me this. He's like, I literally thought it was too good to be true that he literally thought he didn't deserve it. Like, it's so mushy gushy, but like the love that we had was so insane that not even 24 hours later, he was calling me and saying, I need to talk to you. And we met up in person, and he was just like, I cannot live my life without you. So for us, it was just more of a feeling. And then we definitely figured out life together as we went on. But it was so fun, like having each other. Like, never once did I think like, and I still haven't thought about like, oh, we were too young. Oh, we probably should have waited. I've never thought that. Like, he has treated me with the utmost respect from day one. And like, I feel like that's like mutual. I have so much respect for him, the way he carries himself, the way he cares for our family. I mean, having Leah and watching him with Leah has like made me love him even more. It's just like a different side. But all like it comes from a lot of what he came from, of like not wanting to be like that. And he, like, we've talked about it so many times. He said, I just want us to be okay. And that's financially, emotionally, like, and that's why we communicate so much, is because without it, like, there's been times where like we've, especially at the beginning of our relationship, and like living together is a whole different story. We had to learn to live together. I've only lived with like a roommate in college, and I literally spoke to her maybe 5 times. And then the next year we were married and moving in together. I was like, oh my gosh. But communication has been like our biggest key. I mean, we're not perfect by any means. We've gone through some really insane stuff together, but it's always been like him and I. Like, there's no question. Like, all he wants to do is take care of his family, and he's not just thinking like just like us. He's thinking about like our daughter, like our kids, if we have any more, our grandkids. Like, that's his thought process. He's like, I want our family to be set up for success. And like, that's what, and like, I'm not kidding. This is like what we talked about, like the first month that like we were together. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but like we got engaged in 5 months. Like, we dated for 5 months, and people were just like, and we were like, and it was so funny because when he went and asked my parents to get like proposed to me, you'd think after like 5 months, because like my parents didn't know him from 7th grade like I did. So they were like, they'd only known him for 5 months. But when he went and asked like my parents if he could propose, my parents were like, yes, please, like, you can marry her. They love him, and he shows them respect. Same to him. And it's just, from like one of your very first questions, like, I do believe things happen for a reason. Even people at our wedding, people literally came to our wedding and they were just like, I can't believe you guys got married so fast. Like, and not like like, we're so happy for you, but it was kind of like judgmental. And I was like, okay, I see you. But it's just like always been like him and I, like, we love each other, and we grow as a couple, in different ways. The more things like happen to us, is we grow more. Just this year, he got a shop, like a building for his business. That's like the huge thing that's happened for us. And we remember, I mean, I told him, we were sitting down and I was like, literally like years ago, you were a janitor, a literal janitor. And here we are now. I won't say, but like, he's making like decent money. Um, and I'm just like, how does this happen? Like, and like, I don't know. It's just like mutual respect, mutual support. Um, I don't know. In our marriage, like, it's kind of, again, it's kind of cliche, but like, sometimes people are like, you both have to give 100%, and I'm like, we don't think that way. There have been so many days that I'm like literally at zero. Like, I'm like, I have nothing like to give, and he's like, that's okay. Like, that's okay. Like, that's fine. And then him, there's been days where he's just been like, I don't know what we're going to do. And then I'm like, we're fine. We're going to be fine. Like, we will be okay. And then turns out we're okay. So it's kind of just give and take, like, when you can. There's no like formula to it. It's funny because you're not the first person to ask us like about like our relationship and like when do you know and like what does that look like, and I'm like, I feel like everybody is so different. Like you said, like you don't see yourself getting married like before 30. I have friends who literally think the same thing. Same thing about kids. Like me and one of my best friends, like I said, we have kids that are pretty close in age. And I have other friends who are freaking thriving in business. Like they are killing it. But then they like talk to us and they're like, well, like I kind of feel like I'm behind. And I'm like, behind on what? Like, what are you behind on? I'm like, you're so successful. I'm so proud of you. And they're like, well, you guys are having kids. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, you are setting your future kids up for success because you're killing it. Like, that's so like honorable. Like, I think it's so awesome. So it's just stuff like that. Everybody is so different. And I mean, I've told people, I get back to the kid thing, but like I've told people like everybody goes at their own pace. So like you don't have to, comparing is so easy. Like it is so easy. Um, but everybody like runs their own race. Like, and if you try to force it, that's when things go wrong. Um, like I said, we waited to have Leah like when we were financially capable. And I was like, if we had her a year before, I literally would have a panic attack. Like we were not in a place like to have her. We would have dealt with it, but it wouldn't have been the most joyful. But the time that like we had, like I had an amazing time. Like, I mean, I hated being pregnant because I was so sick, but um, we set her, I mean, we've set her up for success already, and that makes us feel good. So I mean, like I said, everybody's so different. I have friends who aren't married. I have friends who are married but don't have kids, and like I have friends who are just like, I have no idea what I want to do in life, and I'm like, that's okay. There's probably like 50, 60-year-olds who are like, I don't know what I want to do. So everybody's just kind of, I don't know. I just want people to run their own race.
Yeah, and I think culturally we get influenced to like sort of compare. I mean, that's not the only reason, I guess. I'm no psychologist, but evolutionarily speaking, I guess somewhere there is that bug in us that makes us want to compare and sort of look at things. I don't know. I wonder if that's the case because I feel like that's something everybody does. So to some extent,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a cultural thing. It's also like an evolutionary thing, possibly. Again, not a psychologist.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know, but yeah, you're so right about the fact that everybody is running their own race. Like just because I am financially successful at X years doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be financially successful in like X years. It might take you much. You might be there much earlier than I, or a little later
Mm-hmm.
than I, and that's okay. Like I
Yeah.
think the one thing that I generally like try to remind myself of this too is that if I know that I'm putting effort towards something, then I'm okay. Like if I'm just sitting on
Hmm.
my hands and not doing anything about, be it my aspirations, goals, college, research, whatever it may be, okay, then
Yeah.
I probably need to ask myself some questions about what am I doing? Like, am I putting in the effort that I can and so on? But if I'm putting all the effort that I can and, you know, giving it my all, then I'll get there at some
Hmm.
point. Because I feel like
Yeah.
I mean, it's very easy to say this for me because, like, as Indians, we have this thing where it's like, okay, at age 30, you get married.
Yeah.
At age 28, you have a house because you should have a house before you get married
Hmm.
because that's where you would bring your wife in. And at age 32 or 35, you would have your first child and then da 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 da. Like I don't know about that. Like I mean, if you
Yeah.
think about it, when I hear people talk about that kind of stuff, I kind of like think to myself, but you say that, but you had a child at some point and you
Hmm.
had your first home at some point. So
Yeah.
why on earth do you expect people to like follow a certain blueprint? Because you didn't.
Yeah.
And it's not a way to sort of like belittle them or anything, but just like realize the fact that everybody has their own blueprint. Like
Yes.
we don't have the same blueprint. So I guess it just comes down to the
Absolutely.
essence of that. Yeah.
No, for sure. Yeah. I mean, everything you said was totally right. And I mean, um, I don't know. I don't know. I'm I'm a white woman that lives in America. So they're like, you're supposed to get married and a man's supposed to take care of you and do this and do this. Which I'm like, I am a stay-at-home mom, but I'm like, my husband will support me in anything that I want to do. He doesn't expect me to do this. I want to do this. But I'm also doing things on the side and like doing little businesses on the side. And um, I don't know. I think at least like, I don't, I'm just speaking from like my experience, but like culturally, like America is changing a little bit in that way, like with women.
Yeah.
I would say significantly from like the 1950s to now. I can tell you that like my grandparents are still alive and I mean, there are times I remember I think it was in high school or something, and I was like going to church or whatever with my parents, and my grandma was like, "You really need to be wearing dresses to church." And in that moment, I was like, so many things have shifted culturally. I mean, yeah, significantly in time that um those it's just like different for us. But still so close that my grandmother like said that to me. I was like, "Oh, nope, I don't want to do that." um, I was actually just looking at my family is very big on like keepsakes. Ours is like photo albums. So we literally have photo albums back from like the 1880s, I think. Um, and over Christmas, we found another one and it was from like 1901, I think. Um, and just how much like I cannot tell you how much has changed literally just flipping through those pages. I was just like I come from like a native family, so it was literally like they're in their whole thing. Also the the native women in my family have this thing where they marry white cowboys. That's something I found. Every picture, it was like a full, like my family's super native, and then it's like a white cowboy with cowboy hat, cowboy boots, and a horse, and I'm like, all right. Um, but just like their dress, and then like it's so fun looking like at the pictures and then like my family telling me stories about those people and all that stuff. So a lot has changed over time, and just seeing that physically in front of my eyes was nuts. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like we get to add our pictures like to this, and our future great grandkids get to look at them. Because I'm not kidding, I think it went back like 5 greats, like great whatever, that I got to see, and I'm like, that's so amazing, like that we get to keep track of all of that stuff. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, the women in my family have historically been very outspoken and strong people, whether they're staying at home or not. So I really feel like that is carried down to us. And it's hilarious because my husband's side of the family, they only have boys, like literally, like their whole line, like they only have boys. And in my family, we only have women. Like it's just like women in my family. And when I was pregnant, before we found out that Leah was a girl, my husband was like, I know it's a boy. Like, we just like naturally have boys. And I think I was like 5 weeks pregnant. And I was like, there's this like, people talk about motherly instincts. Like, I knew. I was like, it's a girl. Before I even knew she was a girl, I started buying bows and like girl clothes because I was so confident that it was a girl. And I was like, and when they told us it was a girl, I was just like, I know. Like, I know it's a girl. And like, honestly, I think that like, if we had another one, I still think it would be a girl. I think we're going to be a girl family. So go women.
Yeah,
We'll see though.
yeah, it's just funny how those things work because I'm just when you mentioned that, it reminded me of a cousin of mine, and she got married to someone who has a twin brother. And I think she and her sister-in-law, I guess, got pregnant probably like a few months apart,
Mm-hmm.
and they both ended up having girl child. So it's just funny how those things work. I guess funny is not the right word, but I guess it's kind of
No,
cool
I
how
get
those
it.
things work out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we've gone for a little while, so I think we should
Yeah.
gradually bring this to a close.
Let's do
Uh,
it.
do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you want to share? Anything you want to say before we call it good?
Um, I don't think I have anything like specific to say. I had a great time just being able to talk business and talk being a mom, being a woman, um, letting out some kind of, I say trauma. I know we didn't get into it, but letting a little bit out at a time. That's always good. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I were to say anything, I would say if you're on the fence about trying something or going out on a limb of like business wise or whatever, this is your sign to go for it. I would not be here without just throwing a Hail Mary. So that's all I got to say. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. And yeah, I guess it's a
Yeah.
good note to close off on is that, if you're on the fence about something, then yeah, swing for the fences. Like give it your best shot and go from there. Exactly. 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 Well, yeah, thank you so much, Aleecia, once again for joining me. I appreciate it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and for those of you listening and watching, thank you so much. We'll see you guys next week. Adios.